When the Pokemon TCG starts a new block, it usually takes 4 or 5 sets to really ramp things up. Last block with Sword and Shield, we didn't really see things start to get spicy until Battle Styles. Although people poo-poo on Battle Styles now, you have to think back when Urshifu dropped, it changed the entire meta. And then every set after Battle Styles within Sword and Shield brought new cards that would once again change the meta over and over again. So far in the Scarlet and Violet block, we really haven't had that. The metagame has been relatively stale since the beginning. Gardevoir, Miraidon, and now Charizard are some big archetypes, but most of the big players are still leftovers from Sword and Shield block like Mew. Paradox Rift is shaping up to be the answer to that staleness that a lot of players are feeling in the metagame, which is why today we are going to be looking at some newly revealed cards that are most probably going to be in the Western release of Paradox Rift. Iron Valiant EX and Roaring Moon EX were revealed quite a while ago. They are the mascots of the set. They are very good, interesting cards, and they will either create their own archetypes or supplement existing archetypes. But sometimes within the Pokemon TCG, it's the smaller components that really make the deck, and that's where I'd like to focus today with some more recently revealed cards. Let's start with Toedscroll, which has amazing full art artwork. I'll just say most of the cards we're going to be talking about today have amazing artwork that accompany them. This is no exception. I love it. It has the ability Mycelium Colony, where cards in your opponent's discard pile cannot be put into their hand through the effects of trainer cards or abilities they use. This is potentially a card that you're going to be teching in to shut down things like Clara or Superior Energy Retrieval, which are essential to a lot of decks like Chien-Pao. Unfortunately, from the translation, it doesn't seem like it stops effects that take cards from the discard and places them onto the field, which would make this card so much better and make it an easy tech for a lot of decks to shut down those matchups. I feel like the Pokemon TCG has really been lacking in those hard counter techs that decks could utilize. Next is Armarouge, which is one of my favorite Pokemon from Scarlet and Violet. It's a little fiery Mega Man guy. A stage 1 with 260 HP is not bad, and it's got this Crimson Armor ability where if it's at full HP, it takes 80 less damage from attacks of your opponent's Pokemon, which sets it up to be part of a really cool archetype that I'm not sure we've seen much of before, which is a healing fire type deck where you continuously heal Armarouge so that it's at full HP. That way your opponent's incoming attacks are going to do much less damage. That does mean that Armarouge EX is going to be a key target for cards like Sableye that are going to be dealing chip damage and sniping on the bench, and it may be difficult to balance some type of healing mechanic on top of accelerating fire energy onto Armarouge so that its Scorching Bazooka attack is going to deal OHKO level amounts of damage on your opponent's Pokemon. I think this is one to keep an eye on. Not sure yet if it's really going to take off, but it'll be interesting to watch. The new Wimpod and Golisopod add some incredible artworks. These are going to be two of my chase cards from this set. Though Golisopod is interesting, it is pretty vanilla. It doesn't have a whole lot of synergy with other cards that have been revealed yet. And there's a lot of competition for water Pokemon in decks right now with Chien-Pao, Baxcalibur, and Palkia V-Star still running around. That being said, I think Veluza is a water type that does deserve some hype. But first, I do want to take some time to appreciate this artwork because I know Veluza has these Pokedex entries about it having this tasty flesh that it will discard in order to distract its pursuers or get away, but I've never actually seen it do this. I didn't really use one in the games, but here clearly in this artwork, this Veluza is just shedding all of its delicious meat. Despite how grotesque that sounds, this card is gorgeous. And I think the card itself is going to be a solid addition to water decks. Its ability, Cut for the Job, is essentially an upgraded version of Experience Share built in. We're talking about a basic Pokemon with 120 HP here. It's not going to be that difficult to power up with as much water acceleration as we have in the format right now. On your second turn, you rare candy up into Baxcalibur, you drop a bunch of water energy, and you start going to work. And then when Veluza's knocked out, those water energy aren't lost. You're not going to have to spend a Superior Energy Retrieval to get them back out of your discard. You can just go ahead and move them on over to your bench and keep rolling through. I don't think it's going to change the core of what any Chien-Pao or Palkia V-Star deck is doing, but I do think this card sees play in those water decks. Swablu and Altaria are looking cute, as they tend to do. For the card itself, though, I don't think this Altaria EX is really going to see play. At best, it's just a stall card and a support card kind of rolled into one, but it's also a dragon type, and so the energy is weird. Pokemon brought back the dragon types, but then they haven't really done much to support them. I don't dislike the card, but I don't really see it fitting into the metagame anywhere just yet. Now let's chat about Maushold EX. Of all of the cards that have been revealed recently, this is the one that I've put the most amount of thought into, and I still cannot crack it. It's a stage 1 with 230 HP, has this ability Solidarity. If this Pokemon is in the active spot and is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, put 3 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon for each of your Tandemaus and Maushold in play. So given the right build, your opponent is going to be taking 120 damage just for attacking and landing a hit on this Maushold EX. There are a lot of holes here, so the Maushold has to be in your active position, meaning that if your opponent snipes it while it's on the bench, you don't get to use Solidarity, and if your opponent is placing damage counters on an active Maushold, Solidarity also does not trigger. It is also very notable that Tandemaus has 30 to 40 HP, meaning that you don't want to be leaving this card just sitting on the bench, so an ideal build of this is just going to have 4 Mausholds just chilling on your side of the field. I love abilities like this. It's just in the case of Maushold EX, I don't really know what else you do with the deck. In the right matchup, Solidarity can be extremely useful. It's going to get you all kinds of knockouts in combination with Greedy Fangs. But what's your alternative win con? What else do you do with this deck? What do you pair it with? Once again, do you just pair this with something that's going to continuously heal it over and over again? That way you're forcing your opponent to attack it as many times as possible before it's finally knocked out? Do you just load the deck down with item cards that are going to make Maushold more defensive or buff its HP to make it tankier? I don't know. If someone has ideas on what can be done with this card, please let me know down in the comments because I'm super interested in running it. But I'm kind of stumped as to how you really get the full potential out of this card. I'm a big fan of Pokemon cards that incorporate a specific trainer into their abilities, their attacks, their artwork. A lot of Cynthia cards do this. The new Espathra also does this. You see Tulip in the artwork there. Tulip is a part of the Glitter Eyes attack, boosting it by 70 damage if you do have a Tulip card in your discard. But the real noteworthy aspect here is its ability All Seeing. Whenever you play Espathra to evolve your Flittle, during your opponent's next turn, you can prevent all damage and effects done to the Espathra by your opponent's Pokemon. So unless your opponent has Boss's Order or another gusting effect, then you can essentially buy yourself a free turn. The problem is that your opponent most always will have some type of gusting effect because there's a lot of them in format, and so I don't really see this card taking off or finding a place in any current Psychic decks. Countercatcher's coming back, which is going to be a huge addition for a lot of decks, especially those archetypes that like to fall behind early game. Looking at you, Charizard. This card's been in format before, just thought I would mention that it's coming back because it is going to see play. But I reckon I have saved the best for last because here we have Snorlax Doll. Because my god, Clefairy Doll has seen such power creep that it has all manifested into this one card. This is an item card. If this card is in your hand when you are setting up play, you may put it face down in play as if it were a 120 HP colorless basic Pokemon. You cannot play it at any other time. So this is a card that is only playable during your setup, during your opening hand. If this thing isn't in there, you're not going to be able to play it otherwise. And then it has the additional classic conditions we get with cards like Clefairy Doll and Robo Substitute, all of those types of cards where at any time during your turn you may discard this card from play. This card cannot retreat, nor can it be affected by special conditions. If this card is knocked out, your opponent can't take any prize cards because this is not a Pokemon, it is an item. So my initial thoughts here were, wow, this is going to be a great card for decks like Alakazam EX from 151. This is basically going to be a Battle VIP pass for that deck where you just run 4 of them. That way you increase the likelihood, you maximize the likelihood that you're going to be able to start with one of these Snorlax dolls in your opening hand. That way it can just sit in the active position for a couple turns, sponge up attacks while your opponent sets up. Meanwhile, you're just attacking with Alakazam from the bench. It's also a great card for hit and run decks that like to attack and then as the effect of the attack retreat back to the bench, because then you can just toss Snorlax doll into the active position and your opponent either has to gust you back out to deal damage or they just have to knock out this lump that's in their way that they can't take a prize for. The important features of this card aren't necessarily what's printed on the card, it's more of what is not printed on this card. And what we're looking at here on the screen is a translation from the Japanese reveal. So there is room for clarification. I feel like this card is going to receive an errata before it has a Western release, maybe even after that. But from the translation, it doesn't seem like Snorlax Doll has to be played into the active position, meaning that if you start the game with 3 of these in your hand, you can play 1 to the active and 2 to the bench. That's a lot of sponge and stall that you could potentially be starting the game with. The card states that Snorlax Doll cannot retreat, but it doesn't say anything about attacking. It doesn't limit this card from attacking, meaning that you can attach a TM to this card, and because it counts as a basic Pokemon when it is in play, that you could then attack with something that isn't even a Pokemon. So you essentially have this bulky basic Pokemon in play that is immune to special conditions and is going to have the ability to attack if you attach a TM and energy to it. That's why I believe that this card is going to receive some clarification or an errata, at the very least, saying that either that the card can't attack or that you can't attach energy to it. If it doesn't receive any type of text changes, we are looking at a very good card that's going to be entering some very specific decks. It's not going to completely break the metagame, but for decks that this card works in tandem with, it is going to be an extremely good card. I would also love to hear the opinions of all of my lovely viewers. Yes, I am talking to you, you wonderful human being and potential enjoyer of my content. Let me know what you think about all of these cards. Do you agree with my assessments, or do you think I'm way off base? What cards in particular are you most excited for out of Paradox Rift, and what cards are you hoping get revealed that will become part of our English set? Social media links are down in the description. If you want more modern and vintage Pokemon content, please check out the channel. I've got plenty of other videos on there, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.